everyone! For this video, I am going to be making a corset out of clothes that I already have but don't wear anymore. So I bought this top a year ago, but I have only worn it once or twice. I really like the floral embroidery on the fabric, and I thought it will really make a dainty and elegant corset. I bought this dress online, but when I tried it on, it was very see-through, especially because it is white. I will be using the cotton fabric on this dress as the base and the lining for the corset. Since there's a lot of the fabric, I think I will be able to use it on my other projects as well. This is the design that I'm going for. I'm going for a sweetheart neckline with princess seams where I will be channeling some bonings, and I want the bottom to have a point at the center, and I'm going to add ruffles at the hem. The back will be straight across with lace-up detail and ruffles. I'm thinking of using this hard tool from a previous project as the ruffles. First step is pattern making. So this is my mannequin. The first thing that I'm going to do is to make sure that it is the right size. So I'm making a size 8, and I have my own size chart that I follow, or you can just make it custom to your actual size, or you can go off from like size charts from the internet. But because it's going to be laced up anyway, the sizing does not need to be strict. The important measurements for the corset are the bust and the waist measurements. So I have this scrap fabric, or not really scrap, just fabric that I don't want to make into something just because I do not like the print. And this fabric is cotton. It doesn't really have that much stretch, so it's good for draping fitted patterns. Take the straight edge of your fabric and fold it, and then put it at the center of the mannequin. Make sure that there is no crease and it lays flat. And although the waist is right here, I like to pin a little bit beyond that so that it stays in place, and then I can just mark this way without this part moving. And then I start to smooth it out, and I take my pins and just pin this in place. Keep on smoothing the fabric starting from the neck to the side seams. Avoid pulling on the fabric. Having excess fabric is normal because of the round shape of the bust, and it's going to be a dart. So just put pins. Be careful not to pin the mannequin as well. So this is what it looks like at the front. This is what it looks like on the side. This is what it looks like on the side. So it has this line as well. And these are the side seams. Where these are placed, these are the side seams. So I went past and I actually pinned around this area so that it just lays flat on the mannequin, and I can mark easily there. This one. This is the center. I can feel it through my fingers. Then take a marker and just draw shapes that you want to draw. For example, I'm trying to make a sweetheart shape neckline, so I'm just going to draw that. Also at the curve here, under the, you just feel it, then you just go to the side seams there, and then mark the dart. Mark the dart on each side up until the point. And then you're gonna go mark where the waist is. So that is the sweetheart neckline. But because we're doing a princess seam, we're going to actually continue the dart here. And then since I'm already doing this one, I might as well do other necklines that I want to do in the future, like maybe a straight neckline, let's say. So we'll just do so I can make multiple patterns in one draping. Do the same thing for the back. Usually there are no darts required at the back and it's just a flat pattern. And then label each pattern with center front, center back, side front, and side back. Transfer the patterns onto paper. Label each pattern and add the seam allowances. I usually use 1 cm or 3/8 inches. I started with deconstructing the white cotton dress. First, I removed the zipper and saved it for my future projects. I separated the bodice from the skirt. I cut the waist seam allowance instead of seam ripping, just so that the process can be faster and easier. I saved the bodice and the ruffles for a future project. I then opened the center back seam. It is time to start cutting the fabric. I try to use as little as I can so that I can save more fabric. Aside from having more fabric to use for the next project, I've been really interested in making zero waste clothing or zero waste fashion. I'm trying to have little to no fabric left or scraps left because I want to be conscious with the way I make clothes and the effect that it has on the environment. I still have a lot to learn and I've only heard about it recently and I want to try to incorporate it in my projects. Here are my pattern pieces. This will be the lining. I'm going to add lightweight interfacing on the lining. Cut the same pattern pieces and iron them. When you're ironing lightweight interfacing, make sure that the outer fabric is on top. If you're going to iron directly on the interfacing, it will melt. This is what happened on this first one that I did. So it melted. Sew the pattern pieces right sides together. Similarly with the cotton dress, I deconstructed the shirt first. I removed the zipper and saved it for future projects. I cut the side seams. Cut the pattern pieces one by one. Cut the same patterns from the white cotton fabric. Since it's 2 layers of fabric, you can choose to base stitch the embroidered fabric to the base cotton fabric first, or you can just sew straight to the machine with right sides together. Iron the seam allowances open. This will prepare the fabric for the boning. Start cutting the length you want your bonings to be. Make sure that you leave 1 cm on the top and at the bottom. This way, you will not sew over the boning when you sew right sides together, the lining, and the actual fabric later on. This is a close-up of how I melt the ends of the boning. Put the boning close to the fire. This way you can avoid having burnt edges that turns into brown or black. I used to not seal my boning edges, and whenever I finish the project, the bonings will always peek through and ruin the fabric. Place the boning approximately 1 centimeter below the edge of the top. Notice here how I try to sew on the fabric part of the boning, which is at the very edge on the side. Use the seam allowances as your guide to always keep your boning at the center. You are sewing the boning on the outer fabric, so the stitches of the boning will be shown on the outside, so try to make it straight. Take as much time as you need. The more you do this, the faster you'll get, and the more straight or precise your stitches are going to be. Do the other side afterwards. This is what it looks like afterwards. Bonings add structure to the bodice and it makes it less likely to crease when it's worn. Get your lining and place them right sides together. Make sure that the seams are aligned. After pinning them in place, sew. Make sure to understitch the neckline. Understitching will avoid having the lining show through when it's worn. It will also give a rounder or more precise shape of the neckline. Because of the sweetheart neckline, cut the fabric or the seam allowance at the point. Make sure to stop cutting just before the seams. After understitching, do the same thing for the round areas of the neckline, such as the sweetheart and the armholes. Flip it inside out and then take it to the ironing board and give it a press. Here I am facing the lining and the outer fabric right sides together again to sew the back. I ironed it as well afterwards. I cut 3 centimeter strips of fabric on the bias to make a bias tape. I then joined those strips together to make a longer strip. Face the bottom of the corset and the bias tape right sides together. Make the seam allowance the edge of the presser foot. I am folding the bias tape like so that later on it will have a cleaner finish. Once you get to the other end, cut the excess fabric and then fold the remaining under. If you have to lift up the presser foot, make sure that the needle is down so that the corset stays in place and the stitch is continuous when you start again. Flip it inside out like so, and then fold twice to hide the raw edges. Sew it in place. Make sure that the stitch is really close to the folded edge. Try to also maintain the same seam allowance. Iron it so that the bottom will be flat. You can stop here if you want the normal corset design without the ruffles. You just have to add your eyelets at the back, but this is what it looks like so far. I originally thought of just using the white hard tool, but I had so much leftover fabric from this shirt and I thought I would just use all of it. I cut strips with 5 centimeter widths that I'm going to use as my ruffles. I joined all of the strips with a French seam. To do a French seam, you have to face the fabrics wrong sides together first, and then afterwards face them right sides together and sew in a way where the seam allowance is inside when you finish sewing. I wanted to overlock the edges to avoid fraying, so I removed one needle from the left side so that the overlocking stitches will have a thinner width. I did the pleats myself, and I pinned them in place before sewing at the middle to hold the pleats down. Next part is pleating this white hard tool. I folded it in half, like so, and gave it a press so that it stays in place. I pleated the top as well afterwards. Next part is I pinned the ruffles where I want them to be. And then I top stitched the ruffles using the existing seams from the ruffles as my guideline. The last step is to add the notions. The notions for this project are the eyelets. There will be 5 eyelets on each side. I used to do my eyelets by hammering them with the tools they came with, but because I use eyelets a lot for my pieces, I've decided to invest on a hand press. I cut a small hole, just enough for the eyelet to be inserted through, and then place this circular metal on top. I pushed the eyelet with my hand press, and this is what it looked like afterwards. I bought this hand press from Etsy, and I'm going to link the shop on my description box below if you are interested. The last step is to add the ribbon that will be used to tie the back. I used a silk ribbon just because I think it's very elegant looking. Because it frays at the end, I am melting the edges to close it off. Use the burning or melting technique as we did with the boning. I also added a ribbon at the front. I really loved the outcome of my project, and I showed it to my younger sister, and she said that it looked like a ballerina's corset. Like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video, and follow me on my Instagram account Maria Gabriela Couture. Thank you.